What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the setting of Battlefield 2042, why the world is the way that it is during this game, and what the story is behind the war that we're fighting in. I haven't actually talked about it on the channel yet, but I'm sure most of you guys will have heard already that there is actually no single player campaign in Battlefield 2042. They've decided to put all of their focus into the multiplayer, although there is still offline modes such as essentially multiplayer but against AI. So if you're an offline player, then don't worry, there is still a lot of fun on the way for you guys. But yeah, in terms of there being an actual campaign, that is no longer the case in this installment. This is a rather controversial decision by DICE, as a lot of people might see it as having less content and stuff like that. Personally, I buy Battlefield for the multiplayer, as would, I imagine, 99% of the player base. So for me personally, I'm absolutely fine with it. Don't get me wrong, it would be great to have a campaign as well, but if they're going to put all of that time and energy that they would have spent on the campaign into making multiplayer even better, then I am all for that personally. But I am definitely interested to hear what the overall reaction is from the entire community. Now anyway, like I said, we are going to be going over the setting and the storyline in this video. Despite there being no campaign, there is still a story that will be told through multiplayer. There is a story about why the war is happening and why the world is the way that it is in this game. So we're going to jump into those details right away. So obviously the game is set in 2042, that's made fairly obvious by the title, but the storyline sort of starts closer to 2030 when the world essentially goes into a global crisis. There are rising sea levels due to global emissions, economies are collapsing due to the chaos that's been unfolding all around the world, and at first thought this all might sound a little bit unrealistic, but when you think of the state of the world right now with all of this pandemic stuff going on, this early stage of the story is honestly pretty eerie. It doesn't seem that far-fetched to me in real life, since economies are literally collapsing right now as we speak. So this story definitely has a few hints of realism that do make it pretty scary to think about. Now anyway, like I said, economies are collapsing, the world is just falling into chaos, and by around 2036 the world is in a state that they're pretty much calling the Second Great Depression due to the issues with those economies all around the world, and this results in a lot of fallen nations where they're essentially turning into third world countries. Governments are falling apart, there's looting and rioting on the streets as people just try and survive, and as I said, the world is just in absolute chaos. Because of everything that's going on, the surviving nations who are more powerful and are managing to survive, they essentially shut their borders to the rest of the world, as there are millions of refugees all around the planet who are just sort of trying to find a place to be safe and to survive. And so as these borders are shut, this obviously just puts those fallen nations in even bigger trouble, and the world essentially becomes just a few select countries and then an entire planet full of people with no nation to call home. These people are referred to as the non-patriated, or the no-pats as they call themselves, and despite their situations, the no-pats all around the world band together and manage to do their best to survive despite their hardships. In amongst these no-pats are many doctors and farmers and engineers, as you would expect, since they used to have jobs and careers before all of this started. But on top of that, there are also many highly trained soldiers who, used to serve the military of their nations before those nations collapsed, and this results in there being millions of soldiers with no nation to fight for. In 2040, there is a global blackout that disrupts all electronic communications around the world, and the nations who are left and who are trying to survive have a lot of tensions between each other, as they have no way of seeing what each other are up to, and therefore none of these remaining countries trust each other. A global war breaks out, and the US and Russia are really the only nations left fighting, at which point they begin turning to the no-pats to actually gain more reinforcements and increase their chances of winning the war, and they promise the no-pats who fight for them that once they win the war, they will offer them a piece of what is left in the world after the war is over. So essentially the US and Russia are in an all-out war for survival, and soldiers from all over the world with no place to call home come to help fight for each side of the war, not because they're loyal to those countries, but because they want to secure a safe place for their people to live once their chosen side wins the war, and this results in a war on the scale that we have never seen before. So that is essentially the outline of the story that we've been given so far. The devs mentioned that this little trailer that we saw will be released in a few months, and that will probably give you guys a better look into the story, as it is a little bit harder to explain it rather than just showing the trailer that we saw. But yeah, that is the overall story of why the world is the way that it is in Battlefield 2042. It's definitely a very different take on a World War III from what I expected, but honestly I think the storyline actually sounds pretty awesome, and it just changes the pace from what we're probably all used to. So I'm definitely interested to see the overall reaction to this storyline and whether people like it or whether people hate it. The story could also evolve as the live service goes on. I'm sure that when we get new maps and stuff like that, they'll probably give us little bits of lore behind the map and all that type of stuff, which I do think adds a pretty cool element to the game. And although the story isn't all that big of a deal for me personally, I'm definitely keen to see how the story evolves over time. So anyway guys, that is pretty much going to do it for this one. Let me know what you think of this setting down in the comments section. I think the overall reaction will probably be pretty torn. Some people are going to think it's awesome and some people will probably think it's pretty stupid, but like I said, I'm definitely interested to hear the overall reaction. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.